In a magical world called Hawkagenier at the Tristane Academy for Magicians, Louise Villiers heads to class on her first day as a second-year student. Her teacher asks her to perform a simple spell to change pebbles into brass, though her peers mock her with the nickname Zero. As soon as she casts the spell, the room explodes. Despite being from a famous magician family, Louise has a 0% success rate casting spells. On the day of the familiar summoning ceremony, Kerche summons a fire salamander, Gish summons Wadandi, a large mole, but Louise summons a human being, Saito Hiraga, from Tokyo, Japan, who cannot understand what Louise is saying. Louise is disappointed but cannot break the ritual's tradition, so she makes a contract with Saito by kissing him, and runes appear on his left hand. Louise tries to shut him up by performing a silent spell which backfires and allows Saito to speak and understand Louise's language. Saito thinks he has been kidnapped until he sees the two moons in the sky and realizes he is in another world. Saito must now deal with being Louise's familiar, and he is often whipped for being disobedient. In the morning, Saito dresses Louise before they go to breakfast, where Saito only gets a piece of bread and meets a kind maid, Siesta. Unhappy with the arrogance of nobles, Saito mocks Gish's two-timing nature, so Gish challenges him to a duel. Despite being severely beaten up by Gish's summoned brass golem, Saito refuses to back down. Impressed, Gish tosses him a sword to give him a chance. The runes etched on Saito's hand begin to glow the moment he touches the sword, enhancing his strength and speed and giving him sword skills, and he easily defeats Gish. However, he soon collapses after the fight from fatigue. Mr. Colbert and the headmaster Osmond suspect Saito may be a legendary familiar. With his victory over Gish, Saito has become popular among commoners and several nobles. Siesta and the commoners, who now call him our sword, secretly feed Saito as Louise is withholding food as his new punishment. He also learns why people call her Zero. To add to his troubles, Kerche, a noble from Germania, has chosen him as her next boyfriend. In a devious plan, she attempts to seduce him, although this fails when Louise finds out. After considering Saito's hidden talent with a sword, Louise drags him to town to buy him a sword. Kerche matches Louise's gift with a more impressive sword, which causes more conflict between Saito and Louise. Louise's sword later reveals itself to be the talking sword Deflinger. Osmond continues his harassment of his secretary Longville. Siesta is forced into the service of Count Mott to be his mistress. Disgusted by the lack of regard that nobles have for commoners, Saito tries his best to rescue her. They make a deal where Count Mott asks for a particular family heirloom book from a Germania family, coincidentally it is Kerche's family, which was summoned from another world. Saito asks Kerche for the book, but Kerche wants him to date her. After refusing her demand, Saito attempts to take on Count Mott with Kerche's expensive sword. But his runes do not activate as it is an ornamental sword not meant for combat, and he struggles to lift it. Louise and the others arrive just in time to prevent Saito from being executed. Kerche agrees to give Count Mott the book in exchange for Siesta's freedom and forgiving Saito for his offense. Saito catches a glimpse of the heirloom book and is surprised to find that it is just an old porn magazine from Japan. After they return to the academy, Siesta kisses Saito on the cheek in thanks for his efforts. The exhibition of new familiars is a day away, and Louise is feeling rather depressed about it. Not only does Saito have nothing impressive to show, but this year the Princess of Tristane will be present, which makes the event more important. As night approaches, desperation sets in, as Saito is unable to produce an act worthy of praise. A visitor to Louise's room turns out to be Princess Henrietta herself, and she explains how she and Louise are childhood friends. The next day, Saito performs a weak sword swinging demonstration only to be dragged off stage by Louise. They witness Fuke the sculptor attempting to break into the school's treasure vault using an earth golem. Louise tries to stop her with her magic. But her blast misses the golem and hits the tower wall, breaching the magic barrier to the vault. Tabitha and her dragon familiar, Silford, fly in to help but are too late to prevent Fuke from stealing the fabled Staff of Destruction and making her escape. Worried that the princess may be blamed for Fuke's theft, Louise volunteers to go and catch her. Kache and Tabitha volunteer as well. They travel to the place of Fuke's last sighting escorted by Longville. Kache, Tabitha, and Saito enter an empty house where Tabitha discovers the hidden Staff of Destruction. Fuke's golem appears outside. Louise tries to fight the golem with some spells but fails. As she is about to be crushed, Saito rushes in to save her. Her confidence broken, Louise breaks into tears. Saito is moved by this and attacks the golem himself as Silford rescues the nobles. He uses Kache's sword but it breaks on contact with the golem. Deflinger calls on Saito to use him. Saito draws Deflinger and the runes on his hands glow again. He is able to slash the golem's legs, but they reform themselves. Louise tries to help using the Staff of Destruction, which Saito recognizes as a M72 rocket launcher. And with his rune-enabled abilities, he fires it at the golem and destroys it. In the aftermath, Longville claims the staff and reveals herself to have been Fuke all along. She engineered the scenario to discover how to use the staff. She tries to kill the students with the staff but nothing happens, as rocket launches are single-use weapons. Saito knocks Fuke out. Later, Osmond reveals that 30 years previously, he was fighting a monster when a man from another world, an American soldier from the Vietnam War, used one of two staffs to save his life. After the man died, Osmond buried the man and kept the remaining staff. The school holds a ball to celebrate. Louise asks Saito to dance and thanks him for saving her. Henrietta congratulates Louise for capturing Fuke. She offers her hand to Saito, but Saito misunderstood and kisses her on the lips. Henrietta asks Louise and Saito to work undercover to determine if nobles are taking advantage of the commoners. Louise naively loses all of their money in a casino where she was hoping to increase their funds. Refusing to ask Henrietta for more money, Saito and Louise find work at a tavern called Charming Fairy Inn run by Scarron and his daughter, Jessica. Louise works as a waitress and Saito works as a dishwasher where he is in close contact with Jessica much to Louise's displeasure. Scarron holds a contest for the waitresses. Whoever gets the most tips gets a large reward plus the chance to wear a special maid outfit. Louise is unable to earn any tips because of her temper until an arrogant noble enters the bar. After bringing him to justice, the noble runs off, but leaves a large bribe for Louise. The tip enables Louise to win the contest. Even though she and Saito now have way to leave, Louise wears the special maid outfit just for him. It's summer vacation, and many students are traveling back to their families. Kache goes along with Tabitha to her home. As a result, Louise and Saito are alone for once. Kache learns that Tabitha's real name is Charlotte, Princess of Gullier, and that she has a tragic past in which her mother drank a potion that drove her insane. Her reason for returning home is revealed to be a mission from her uncle, the King of Gullier. Meanwhile, Montmorency is upset that Guiche has been flirting with other girls, makes aphrodisiac, a kind of love potion, and tries to slip it into Guiche's drink. Saito obtains a large cooking pot that was about to be thrown away and, at night, fashions it into a hot tub, similar to those in Japan. While Saito relaxes in the tub, Siesta passes by and joins him, much to his embarrassment. Louise sees the two together and becomes so frustrated that she interrupts Guiche and Montmorency and accidentally consumes the drink with the love potion in it. When Saito returns to her room, Louise gets flustered and falls completely in love with him. Louise continues her lovey-dovey behavior towards Saito, which freaks him out. as well as causes a misunderstanding with Siesta. In desperation, Saito demands that Montmorency create an antidote, but she refuses to help until he blackmails her into helping Sai. To learn from Siesta that emotion-changing potions are illegal, as the antidote requires the tear of a water elemental, Montmorency and Guiche leads Saito in the love-struck Louise to Legdorianel Ake, where they make contact with the water spirit who is flooding the land so that she can search for her stolen precious treasure, but she is being hindered by magic users. Saito volunteers to deal with them, and he and Guiche fight the intruders who turn out to be Kerche and Tabitha. Saito promises to find whatever the water spirit has lost. The spirit trusts his word as Gundair and gives him the antidote. Having taken care of the love potion, Louise and Saito receive a new mission. In order to strengthen her country's alliance, Princess Henrietta is to be wed to the Emperor of Germania. Louise and Saito must recover an indiscreet letter that Henrietta wrote to Prince Wales of Albion, or the wedding will be cancelled. The princess is unable to see the prince in person because Albion is in a state of civil war. Guiche overhears the conversation and volunteers to aid the princess, and Henrietta accepts, much to Louise and Saito's ire. Before leaving, Saito learns about Gundair and legendary void magic from Colbert, as well as a story of two dragons. On the day of departure, their escort, Wards, captain of the Griffin Squadron, arrives. It turns out he is also Louise's fiancé, and Saito grows jealous of him. Later, Deflinger talks to Saito about Gundair and how only a Gundair can wield Deflinger. Wards proposes to Louise, then, at dinner, asks Saito to spar with him. Wards wins easily and mocks Saito's promise to protect Louise, leaving Saito depressed. That evening, Louise and Wards board the ship after he convinces her that the boys have returned home. He persists in his courtship and Louise accepts his proposal. In truth, Guiche and Saito have been delayed by the sudden appearance of Fouquet and her golem. They are saved by Kerche and Tabitha, who showed up on Silford. Saito figures out that Wards and Fouquet were working together and Louise is in trouble. Wards and Louise arrive in Albion, the floating continent, where they meet with Prince Wales. Louise delivers the letter. Then Wales gives a reply letter to her that she is meant to retrieve, and learns of the power behind the uprising of nobles in Albion, the Reconquista. Their mission supposedly completed, Wards insists that they get married in Albion. He reveals himself as a member of the Reconquista and is a threat to Wales. Louise tries to refuse, but one of Ward's allies, Cromwell, arrives with the water spirit's stolen ring and forces her to consent using mind control. The marriage proceeds with Wales officiating and is nearly complete when Saito bursts into the church and snaps Louise out of her trance. The marriage ceremony is ruined. Wards kills Wales, steals the letter from Louise, and tries to kill Saito. However, Ward's treatment of Louise angers Saito and he is able to unlock his abilities as Gundair and fully utilize Deflinger. He defeats Ward's magic, who flees, but not before bringing the church down on Louise and Saito. The two of them are rescued by Tabitha and the others. And Silford flies everyone home. Saito, holding Louise in his arms, kisses her. Louise informs Henrietta of Wales's death, and the princess wedding is cancelled. Louise also warns Osmond about the Reconquista. Osmond then tells her about void magic and Gundair. After another argument with Louise, Saito accompanies Siesta to her home village of Talbs to find a dragon. Louise and others follow them and they locate the red dragon, which Siesta's family has kept as an heirloom. Saito finds a tombstone with a Japanese epitaph on it. The dragon turns out to be an A6M0 fighter, a Japanese aircraft. It is revealed that Siesta's great-grandfather was an IJN pilot from World War II and that he was magically transported to Hokuginia just as Saito was. Colbert explains that two dragons had flown during a solar eclipse. But one disappeared. He suggests that the timing of the second pilot, Siesta's great-grandfather, was often that the solar eclipse ended before the second pilot was able to fly through the portal. Saito concludes that the other pilot returned home, and this is his chance to return home as well. As they bring the plane back to school, Albion declares war on Tristane. Wanting to use the country as a base from which they can conquer the rest of the continent and plan to launch their attack in 3 days during the next solar eclipse. Saito tells Louise he wants to return home during the upcoming solar eclipse, and he gets angry when she acts as if she doesn't care. A war between Albion and Tristane is deemed inevitable. Henrietta assembles a military force that conscripts the boys from the academy. Louise walks in on a sleeping Saito, whereupon she says goodbye. The next morning, Saito wakes to find a letter in which Louise has written, "You're fired. Just go wherever you want." Louise decides to join the princess in the war. Saito gets in his Zero fighter while Henrietta advances with the Tristane military to intercept the invading Albion force at the village of Talbs. Instead of flying straight into the eclipse, Saito attacks Albion's dragon squadrons, who are unable to keep up with the plane's speed. Saito runs out of bullets and is attacked by wards on a wind dragon. Louise jumps from Silver to Saito's plane. Tabitha, Kerche, and Gish together break down Fouquet's golem, and Fouquet flees for good. At the thought of Saito being harmed, Louise finally makes a connection with Saito and unlocks her void magic for the first time, casting a powerful spell known as Explosion, which destroys the entirety of Albion's aerial force, including wards. After the battle, with the solar eclipse past and the Zero fighter nearly destroyed, Saito and Louise sit by the plane's wreckage where they have an argument once again and end up kissing. Elsewhere, Cromwell tries to hypnotize Kerche and Tabitha with the Ring of Andouillery, but Gish knocks him unconscious. Later, the 4 aristocrats are awarded medals by Henrietta, and Tabitha is given the Water Spirit's ring to fulfill the promise to return it. Louise is so excited about her medal that she rushes to show it to Saito only to find him chatting with Siesta. In a typical fashion, Louise overreacts and punishes Saito.